I think nobody's going to remember this debate in a
I
week.
don't either.
NBC News has learned President Biden will step aside as the presumptive Democratic nominee. He will suspend his bid for a second term. And
LOL, obviously that didn't age very well. Hello, welcome to a new edition of the Right Wing Populist Podcast. I am the Right Wing Populist. So today I want to talk about Allan Lichtman, the Keymaster, the man with the keys. This idiot. For those who don't know, Allan Lichtman, he created this 13 keys election model. And up until 2024, he claimed that he had accurately predicted every presidential election from like 1984 to the present, maybe 1980, since Ronald Reagan to the present. And he famously predicted in the last election that Kamala Harris was going to defeat Donald J. Trump, and he was wrong. And he's lost all credibility since then. Now, and when people talk about Allan Lichtman, they often refer to him losing credibility in relation to just the election, the 2024 election results. But I don't think that's where Allan Lichtman actually lost all credibility. I think he lost all credibility earlier that year during the first debate between Trump and Biden. And I'm going to get into all of that and explain why. But before we do, I need you to do something for me, folks. It's so simple. Even a liberal could do it. Even a child could do it. I need you to subscribe, whether on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this beautiful, amazing, great podcast. Please subscribe. And if you are listening on the YouTube, like and comment. It helps a great deal with the algorithm. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. So yes, Allan Lichtman, the guy with this ridiculous wig. I mean, this dude is like in his late 70s, and he wears this wig that makes him look like he has like a fresh set of hair. It's like ridiculous. I mean, look at his hair. It's like, that's not, you're like 78 and I'm supposed to believe that's your natural hair, Allan? I mean, come on, dude. Get a toupee that's a little bit more believable. You look like, that's like the hair for like a 15-year-old. Maybe a 15-year-old with a bad comb over, but still a 15-year-old. Like, why are you wearing that, Allan? Anyway, that's not important. But, so yes, Allan Lichtman, he created the 13 keys. It became very famous. And look, he did have some success predicting elections. He had predicted most of the elections correctly up until now. But even before the 2024 election, there were some, chinks in the armor, you could say, cracks in the armor. And what I mean by that is, in 2000, he predicted Al Gore was going to win the 2000 election. But obviously, Al Gore didn't win. And his excuse at the time was, well, Al Gore won the popular vote, and my election model is a national system. So even though Bush won the Electoral College, because Gore won the popular vote, my system was still accurate. And at the time, that explanation actually kind of makes sense. Because you do have the possibility of having a split between the electoral vote and the popular vote. That explanation by Allan actually, fairness to him at the time, makes sense. That's not like, I think, a hacky excuse. It's a reasonable explanation. I don't have a problem with that. However, he did in 2016 predict that Trump was going to win the 2016 election. To his credit, by the way, because even back then he was clearly not a Trump fan. But based on his model, he predicted, sort of begrudgingly with a lot of caveats, but he did ultimately predict that Donald Trump, against all the models against him, against all the polls, he did ultimately predict that Trump was going to win the 2016 election. And he was right. However, the problem for Allan became, well, Trump won the electoral vote, but he did lose the popular vote to Hillary. So were you still actually right? Because 16 years prior, you said because Al Gore won the popular vote, his system was right, even though Bush won the Electoral College. But now he's taking credit for the Trump one, even though Trump lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College. You see, there's a discrepancy there. There is a discrepancy there. And he never really explained his discrepancy. I think he was asked about it on like Bill Maher's show at one point. And he, instead of about the 2000 election and explaining that outcome, and instead of using the Electoral College popular vote split excuse, he said that essentially the 2000 election was stolen and that Gore actually won Florida, not Bush. I'm not going to get into that. The election results in Florida were clearly messed up with the butterfly ballots. It was a shit show. There's no question about that. But the point is, even before the 2024 election, there were clearly signs of Allan being willing to bend his model in certain ways to try to keep his quote-unquote perfect record secured. But obviously in 2024, he has no excuse because Trump won both the popular and the electoral. Even though he picked Kamala, he was wrong. But before Kamala became the candidate, and when Biden was still the candidate, Lichtman was going around saying that you can't replace Biden because the Democrats will almost surely lose. And obviously, he was totally hypocritical because even when the Democrats did replace Biden, he still picked the Democrats to win the 24 election. But the real telling part, and how I realized, because I was a little bit concerned, because leading up until the debate in 2024 against Trump and Biden, he hadn't made a pick yet, but he was clearly leaning toward picking Biden. And that was concerning me because he does, up until then, he did have a good track record, whatever you think of 2000 and 2016. We do have this funky system where the electoral vote and the popular vote don't always cohere. So regardless of his excuses, I can understand them. So he does have a good, he did have a good track record. So I was concerned by the fact that he was clearly leaning toward picking Biden over Trump. But then the debate happened between Trump and Biden. Obviously, Biden shit his pants during the debate. It was ridiculous. It proved that we had this retarded president in the White House. And Lichtman's response to the debate showed you everything you needed to know about whether or not he was capable of being objective. And I'm going to play you some clips from the debate. They're really telling. And, whatever you think of Biden or Trump, obviously the story of that debate was the fact that Joe Biden showed obvious cognitive decline. But to Allan Lichtman, that wasn't the story. The story was Trump's lies. Biden lied a lot during that debate too, by the way. Trump did lie sometimes. He said things that weren't true, in all fairness. But Biden lied a lot too. Plus, he came out, Biden acted like someone that belongs on the short bus, to school. Let's put it that way. I won't use the word retarded because that's not a nice word. So I won't say Joe Biden was retarded. Joe Biden was not a retarded president, I promise. I won't say the word. You can't say that word. It's not politically correct. But let's play you some clips of Allan Lichtman, and it'll just show you that this dude was just not capable of being objective.
Darren,
in the first debate with Romney, Barack Obama was terrible. Way worse than what you may think Biden did tonight, and got slaughtered in the post-debate polls and analysis, and went on to win easily.
Amacha says this debate is not about who won or lost, but about Biden's obvious physical and mental decline.
Well, I think some people will conclude that. I think it's more about Donald Trump's inability to ever tell the truth, but that's where the rub, them moving one way or to the other as a result of this debate.
What do you say about this viewer thinking that Biden was, quote, disastrous?
I don't see that at all. He wasn't great, but he was far, far from disastrous. Again, a lot depends upon what you think of Trump's lies. You could say Trump was disastrous because virtually everything he said was a lie. You could say Biden was disastrous because he wasn't, sharp enough to refute every one of the lies.
Minnesota wants to know, Allan, do you think the Dems are going to consider replacing Biden with Kamala Harris so that she becomes the incumbent at the DNC?
It's just not going to happen.
No shot?
I don't see Biden being replaced. There would be such an admission of weakness on the part of the Democrats that there's no chance. And there was nothing in this debate. And I'd like to hear why you think Biden might replace. I didn't see anything in this debate that would merit that. I mean, he wasn't great, but he wasn't terrible. Replace Biden. Whatever you think of his performance tonight, certainly wasn't terrible or awful or, that it should call for demands for his removal. It had.
Okay, so he said some wild things there. Number one, he says that Biden's performance in that debate was better than Barack Obama's performance in 2012 against Mitt Romney, that first debate between Romney and Obama. Now look, Obama did not have a good performance against Mitt Romney in the first debate in 2012. There's no question about it. But he was coherent. Obama could talk during that debate. Whether or not you think his performance was good or bad, Obama was sentient. He was conscious. He had a brain that was somewhat working. To the extent Obama's brain can work, it was working. Biden's brain stopped working at many points during the 24 debate between him and Trump. Like, we finally beat Medicare. His brain froze. His mouth was agape the whole time. Like, the fact that Lichtman would say that Biden's performance was better than Obama's performance against Romney, that right then and there tells you everything you need to know. He was not capable of being objective. And the real tell there was when he said that the debate was about, for him, Trump's lies, not Biden's cognitive issues. But everyone knows that politicians aren't always truthful, and he's probably exaggerating how much Trump was actually lying during that debate. But obviously the story was Joe Biden not being able to talk. I mean, him and his son, that's his son, I should say, in these clips, they, for the most part, don't even really acknowledge, for the most part, the fact that Biden was clearly showing massive signs of cognitive decline. But to them, that's not really a story. And the reason why, and this is when I knew Lichtman was not objective and I stopped caring what he had to say leading up to the election, even when they replaced Biden with Kamala. Because clearly, to Lichtman, the 24 election was all about Trump. It was a referendum on Trump. Trump's so evil, Trump's so bad, we have to defeat Trump. Everything has to be looked through the prism of defeating Trump. And that's fine. You can have your political views. You don't have to like Donald Trump. But the election was never just going to be a referendum on Trump because Trump was no longer the incumbent. The Democrats were the incumbent party. So regardless if it was Biden or Kamala, the referendum, to the extent there was going to be one, was always going to be on the Democrats because they were the party in power for the last 4 years and people were very unhappy. And again, whatever you think of Lichtman predicting Kamala, I mean, this isn't related to the debate, but he did end up picking Kamala. I think he used his model incorrectly. I'm not going to get into it. I mean, he has the 13 keys. It's not a bad model, but I think he was so biased against Trump that he sort of manipulated his own model to pick a Kamala victory, because I actually think a accurate assessment of his model, it always pointed to a Trump victory, but he picked Kamala instead because he just so clearly dislikes Trump. And that's okay, and I'm not going to get into it, and that's okay. It's okay not to like Trump. The point of this podcast was him picking Kamala was not when he lost all credibility. It's his reaction to this debate between Trump and Biden is when he clearly lost all credibility. Because again, no sane person could watch that debate, any objective person could watch that debate and say the biggest story coming out of that debate was Trump's quote-unquote lies. And I'm not even disputing the fact that Trump said stuff that wasn't true, but we had the President of the United States, Joe Biden, literally couldn't talk for segments of the debate. His brain stopped working. And Lichtman's response to that was, Trump's the problem. It's like, what? I think Biden's the problem here. So, anyway, that's the moment Allan Lichtman really lost all credibility. And obviously, Kamala Harris did not win the election, even though he picked her. She lost. And Lichtman can't even pretend now he has a perfect record because, again, Trump won both the popular and the electoral. So Lichtman's perfect record is no more. And, again, that's not to say he's terrible. I do think his 13-key system is actually pretty cool. It's fun to play with when you want to make your own assessment. But to me, they always pointed to a Trump victory, regardless if it was Kamala or Biden. And, again, this debate reaction is the proof you needed that he was not capable of being objective because of his distaste for Donald Trump. And that's okay. It's okay not to like Donald Trump. But you can't let it get away of your analysis, and I think it clearly did this past election. And I think the debate between Trump and Biden, was the sign you needed to see if you wanted to know if Lichtman was capable of being objective. He wasn't. That's why I picked Kamala, and that's why he was wrong. Anyway, folks, that's it for today. We should be back by Monday. I'm working on a big video for the YouTube channel. I think it's going to be good. We'll see. Very funny, I hope. But, it'll be hopefully up soon. Not exactly sure when, but hopefully it will be up soon. Again, please subscribe, whether on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Greatly appreciate it. If you are listening on the YouTubes, like and comment. Helps a great deal. Like I said, we should be back Monday. Hope you have a great weekend. Hope you fall in love, or maybe you fall out of love if they're not a good partner. Regardless, have a great weekend, folks. Bye-bye.